There are over 400,000 textual variants in the Greek New Testament, and only about 138,000 words. That means there are more variants than words in the New Testament. That also means you can't trust the New Testament, right? Checkmate, Christians. Wait, those 400,000 variants are across over 5,600 manuscript copies. So the first reason that there are so many variants is because there are so many copies of the New Testament. That's important because textual critics compare the thousands of independent copies from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Europe to determine how significant these variants actually are. Let's start by defining variant and defining textual criticism. A variant is simply an alteration or difference between different copies of a text. Textual criticism is the technique of restoring text as nearly as possible to their original form. Textual critics have developed three categories to figure out if a variant really matters or not. The first category is viable and not meaningful. Variants fit this category if they could reflect the original wording of the author, but don't change the meaning of the passage. This is the vast majority of variants within the New Testament documents and manuscripts. Within this category, 70% are spelling differences. Daniel Wallace, expert in New Testament studies and Greek grammar, says, quote, "To be sure whether John's name was spelled in Greek with one ni or two may remain a mystery, but the point is that John's name was not spelled Mary." Another example Wallace uses is the sentence, "Jesus loves John," because in Greek, that can be written many different ways, and yet the meaning never changes. Commenting on that exact example, Bible translator William D. Muntz writes, quote, "In fact, you can write it hundreds of ways without any change in meaning. The different readings could be viable, but they're not meaningful. Such is the nature of Greek and any inflected language." The second category is meaningful and not viable. These variants would change the actual meaning of the text, but it's clear they're not original, not viable. Interestingly, most of these variants were purposeful and not a mistake. Usually the note was to add context or to clarify a situation. For example, the NIV has a footnote in John 5:3 where it adds context for why the paralyzed man was waiting by the pool of Bethesda. Again, this category is meaningful, it adds clarity, but it's not viable. It's known to not be in the original wording. William Muntz summarizes these first two categories in the following ways. Quote, "Among the 400,000 textual variations, 99% make virtually no difference whatsoever. They are either not meaningful or not viable." The third category is meaningful and viable. This category is the one that really matters. This is also by far the smallest category. Less than 1% of all variants are both meaningful and viable. One of the most common variants in this category is we and you. Some copies will say something like "you brothers." Other copies will say "we brothers." The change is viable, either one might be the original, and there is a slight difference in meaning. The United Bible Society has cataloged the variants that fit into the meaningful and viable category. The number is 1,408, of which 1,035 of the variants, they say text is certain or the text is almost certain based on internal and external evidence. Quote, "So the UBS identifies 373 places out of the 1,408 total where there was significant doubt about a meaningful variant, 0.09% of the 400,000, William D. Muntz. 0.09% is not very large. But what if the 0.09% of viable and meaningful variants completely changes Christianity? Muntz writes, quote, "There's not a single viable variant that calls into question any point of biblical theology, major or minor." Agnostic textual critic Bart Ehrman agrees, quote, "The essential Christian beliefs are not affected by textual variants." The textual variants are a testament to the rich manuscript tradition in Christianity and do not in any way undermine the reliability of the New Testament.